Emily and I decided to check out this old church one evening. We weren't particularly religious, but the place had a kind of spooky history that caught our interest. We thought we'd find Father Johnson there, probably busy with his usual tasks, but the church was completely empty and silent when we stepped in. It was a bit unsettling. Even Emily, who's usually fearless, seemed a bit unnerved. "What do you think he is?" Emily said. I just shrugged, trying to sound casual. "Maybe he's just taking a break or something." I suggested we stick around and look for him, so we stayed. We started searching for Father Johnson, half expecting to find him in some hidden part of the church. The deeper we went into the church, the colder it got. It was like the temperature was dropping with every step we took. The feeling in the air grew heavy and tense, like we were about to uncover some hidden, frightening truth. After searching for what felt like ages, we finally found Father Johnson outside. He was lying on the ground unconscious, and the sight of him like that filled us with fear. We rushed over, worried and anxious. "Father Johnson, are you all right?" Emily asked him, her voice full of concern. He slowly woke up, groaning in pain. "Someone hit me," he mumbled weakly. A mix of fear and shock ran through me. Who would do something like this to a priest? We helped him stand up. He looked like he had been through a rough time. His clothes messed up and his face showed he'd been hit hard. Even though he seemed confused, Father Johnson insisted we get out of the church for our safety. Leaving the church, we couldn't shake off the feeling that something was very wrong. The quietness of the night was shattered by the shocking turn of events. We didn't waste a moment and called the police right away, telling them about Father Johnson being found hurt. Waiting for them felt like an eternity, every second stretching out as we stood there, a mix of fear and worry clouding our thoughts. Finally, the police arrived, breaking the tense silence of our anxious wait. We quickly gathered our thoughts and told them everything, how we found Father Johnson, his condition, and the unsettling feeling that had been hanging over us. They listened intently, taking notes, and began their investigation right there. The officers reassured us that they would do everything in their power to catch whoever did this. They asked a few more questions, trying to piece together the details. As they worked, a sense of seriousness and urgency filled the air. We could only hope that their efforts would lead to finding the person behind this disturbing incident. As the days turned into weeks, we couldn't stop thinking about the attack. Who did it and why? The church, with its old walls, seemed to hold deep secrets that left us unsettled. The police finally caught the person who had attacked Father Johnson. It turned out they had a grudge against him and the church, a result of the troubled past leading to this burst of revenge. During Father Johnson's recovery, we often visited him. He always thanked us for helping him that night. His gratitude was evident. After some time, we made the decision not to go back to that church. It felt like we had closed that chapter in our lives. That scary night left a mark on our memories. It was a harsh reminder that darkness could lurk anywhere, even in places we consider safe. We never thought we had a horror story to tell about this church, but it taught us that safety can be fragile, even in sacred spaces. It was Christmas Eve, and the old church buzzed with a mix of people. My family and I squeezed into a pew, surrounded by others. Some looked joyful, others worn out. The air was filled with the scent of candles and pine from the Christmas tree. The choir's hymns and the pastor's story about the birth of Jesus wrapped the place in a cozy holiday feeling. Yet, I couldn't shake off this strange, uneasy feeling. Maybe it was the flickering candles or the creaks of the old church. I told myself it was just the holiday jitters. During a break in the service, I slipped away from my parents to get a breath of fresh air outside. Wandering through the chilly, dimly lit corridors, I suddenly bumped into a guy in shabby clothes. His eyes burned with intensity, and he leaned in close to say urgently, "You need to go outside. Something's happening." His words sent chills down my body, but they also piqued my curiosity. I followed him outside in the cold night air. Just as we stepped out, the church doors closed behind us with a soft click. He was breathing hard, staying close as we moved away from the church. Something felt off the moment we stepped out of the church's sight. Suddenly, he grabbed my arm, his grip tight and painful. Panic surged through me as he pulled me towards a shady car hidden in the darkness. I struggled, trying to break free, but he held on even tighter. Overwhelmed with fear, I screamed as loud as I could. It was a raw, desperate sound. My scream must have carried because someone from the church appeared out of nowhere. At the sound of my scream, the man's eyes widened in shock, and he quickly let go of my arm as if it burned him. I stumbled backward, my heart racing and out of breath. The person from the church rushed over and their face was filled with concern. "What's happening here?" they asked, their eyes darting between the disheveled man and me. I was gasping for air, and while barely able to speak, I managed to say, "He tried to attack me." The man looked frustrated, almost angry, muttered something under his breath, and then quickly disappeared into the night. The person from the church escorted me back inside, and the warmth of the building felt like a safe haven after the chilling encounter. Once inside, the warmth of the church felt like a comforting embrace. My parents were there, unaware of the danger I had just faced, greeting me with their usual love. As the service resumed, I couldn't shake off the image of the man's haunting eyes and the eerie feeling that lingered. The festive songs and lights of the church now seemed overshadowed by the frightening encounter outside. That night, amidst the celebrations, my mind was haunted by the thoughts of what could have happened if I had been dragged away into the darkness. On Christmas Eve, I found myself in a church that had a kind of spooky vibe. The hymns and dim candlelight made the place feel warm and inviting. Little did I know this night would be more than just a regular holiday service. Sitting in the cold church, my breath visible, I noticed a homeless man walk in. He was hard to miss against a backdrop of well-dressed people, his tattered clothes and unkempt beard standing out. People looked at him nervously, but it was Christmas, and I felt we should be kinder and more understanding. He shuffled to the back of the church, his grip tight on a bag that looked like it had seen better days. It was dirty and swollen, crammed with more than it could hold. Despite trying to focus on the service, my eyes drifted to him. There was something about that bag, a nagging curiosity that I couldn't shake off. Then, in a moment that felt like a scene from a horror movie, I saw it. A human leg, unnaturally pale and still, was protruding from the bag's opening. My heart jumped into my throat. Fear washed over me, cold and paralyzing. But even as I felt this fear, a part of me was desperate to understand and make sense of what I was seeing. Was this real? A crime or a twisted joke? I needed answers, but the thought of approaching him gave me goosebumps. The leg looked so real, so lifeless. It couldn't just be a prop, could it? My mind raced with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. Taking a deep breath, I left my seat and slowly walked towards the homeless man. It took a moment to muster up the courage, but I finally asked him, my voice shaky, "Hey, buddy, what's in the bag?" He turned to me, his eyes empty and unsettling. He mumbled something I couldn't understand. His words were slurred and unclear. A chill ran through me. I knew I needed to tell someone, but I didn't want to startle him. It was Christmas, and I thought I should be kind, but I couldn't ignore the alarm bells in my head. I went back to my seat quickly, my thoughts racing with fear. What if this was something awful, like a creepy ritual or something a crazy person would do. I knew something wasn't right. I had to do something about it. I quietly told an usher about the scary thing I'd seen, trying to stay calm. I was worried they might not take it seriously. Then, I sneakily called the police, my voice low and nervous, explaining what was happening and hoping they'd get here fast. Back in my seat, the church felt too tight, almost suffocating. The man with the bag was just sitting there, holding it, not noticing how scared I was. Waiting for the police felt like forever. I couldn't focus on the singing or prayers. I just watched him, waiting.